Now, you loved her tips in my video, What They Don't Tell You in Drama School. Today, I have her in person, in the studio, to talk comedy and character. I think she was really pleased to be here. Mandy Bishop, welcome to the channel.
You. Oh, hang on, what did you say?
I said welcome.
And such a joy it is. Such a joy. You are the yin to my yang, the John to my Yoko, tit for my tat. You complete me.
That is sweet.
Like a very annoying puzzle.
You.
Thank you. Oh, hang on, what did you say?
Welcome. Hi, I'm Scott. You're watching Inside Musicals, the channel for all things musical theatre. Now, as if being a triple threat isn't enough, Mandy's also a writer, producer, director, and so much more. But where she really shines is comedy, whether it's sketch comedy, narrative comedy, television, theatre. So I wanted to ask her about her process. And a big thanks to Australian Theatre Live for the archival footage. So let's start with the Wharf Revue. So first of all, tell us what it is and how long you've been doing it.
The Wharf Revue is a political satire on stage. It's a musical theatre annual satire that Drew Forsyth, Jonathan Biggins and Philip Scott write to reflect the current year's politics and the hot news topics.
And so even though, you all do characters satirising politicians, it's not just politicians, it's all the obsessions that we've had for that past year.
Yes.
So for instance, you did a koala at one point.
Yes. Comedy is such a great way to say something really serious, and we as humans have been abusing the environment for as long as the Industrial Revolution, at least. And so it was lovely to sing about it in a way that was cute but packed a punch.
So the moral of my story, you can be as cute as fuck, but it doesn't mean a thing when someone wants to make a buck. If you meet a politician, just stay cool and keep it calm. Always pedal in his pocket, never pedal on his arm.
How do you develop these characters? What is your way into these characters? Because to give context, you might be playing a dozen characters in the evening.
Yeah. So, for instance, let's just start with the koala. Sometimes the feel of the character is how you get into a character. Sometimes it's sound. Sometimes it's mannerism, like hand movements. The koala, I knew the suit because the suit existed. So that's very unusual. Normally we create the costume in theatre to fit the character, or the costume is at least sketched before we all go into rehearsals, but it's about that particular production. So in that sense, I had to think about how much of my face was showing, how I moved my body, and what you would read as an audience member of that, but knowing that it was a big teardrop of a body, really. So nothing I did with my torso would necessarily read, but if I twisted it, for instance, shoulder and pelvis twisted, you might see something, and you might see some bigger hand gestures, but koalas move slowly. So then I went into, the way that the sound they
growl,
make, which is the least likely sound you would expect coming. For a cute bear, for a drop bear. But also then what sound would a koala who cares about the environment but had something on their table that nobody had listened to for a long time to say? Bit pissed off. So it was an old soul with a young voice kind of character.
So it's a little bit like that, but really had to say something that's a bit, if you don't listen to me, I'll just get out my gun.
I mean, that's a koala. Now, an audience has no preconception of what that might be, but what about when you're doing politicians or public figures? Because not only do you have to create that characterisation, but it needs to be instantly recognisable.
That's right. I think it relates, because in the Wharf Revue, the scenes of each character are about 3 to 5 minutes long, each character. So you have to come in with the character very clearly. Sometimes you say your own name. Sometimes another person in the scene will say it for you. And bing, and you look like them, hopefully. To get into the human characters, I actually draw them first. And I'm not a drawer. So I don't judge myself that it doesn't really look like a human head, but the lines that I try and get for the face are the mechanisms of the muscles of how their face might move.
So does that give you a kinesthetic sense of your own body?
Yes, face and hands, mostly for face and hands and shoulders and the top half. Then I will study their walk. But also there's something about drawing them, and I draw them in pen. That's another weird thing. Because it seems to, I feel like it locks it in for me and I learn it faster. When I was learning Julia Gillard, that's the one I played the most, I had to listen to her a long time because we weren't used to her voice back then, and she had a work choices speech that she made in Parliament. And she was saying, yes, that's right, I'm going to get my work choices beer mug and I'm going to put my work choices insulation sleeve on it and I'm going to get my work choices fridge magnet and stick it on my work choices refrigerator. And I thought, there's work. And that's the first word I got of hers.
So for you, is it the sound or the feeling where it sits in the throat? Or the energy? They're all really good questions because they're all right for different characters. Yeah.
So with Julia, it was the sound of it first, but once I understood what the sound was, to make that sound, you get an instant feel of where it is in your head and your hard palate. And then, I mean, of course, then she's softened. She's like that in political land, but in personal life, she's quite velvety.
But you have to be a more condensed version of that character in that 3 to 5 minutes.
Yeah, we have to be
sketch.
instantly recognisable, as I said, and it's much more satisfying for the audience, I think, to just not have to think who we're watching. Oh, half of the scene's gone. Yeah.
Memories. All I have are my memories. Once the head of Australia, I was somebody then. Though I triumphed when Parliament was hung like a horse, I was dumped by faceless men.
How about Michaelia? Where did Michaelia start for you?
Michaelia was very interesting. She has a lot to say, and she's a lawyer. So it also starts with understanding her brain, which I don't. Of course, I'm me and she's she. But it's got to do with where they may have lived and spent their time and the way their synapses have to function that gives you an idea of their energy. So sometimes it's voice, sometimes it's feeling, and sometimes it's just getting to know their career. And I read a lot about what other people think of her, actually. And then I noticed she has this very forward energy. It's unapologetic. There are all those very famous photos of her going, she's like really scary in those hearings.
It's all forthright.
Yes. She's not, and she doesn't apologise for it later, which is fun. And she has a Perth accent, which is really lovely. But she's got, one of the things that got me into her was her laugh, which is like, it's like, ha! Curry. Hi, a curry for the country. I've got to tell the Prime Minister about that one. A curry for the country. I love it. I love Indian food. It's my favourite food, I can promise you that. In fact, I had a curry last night. Oh, Matthias! Oh, it's so at the front with full lung and a big chest voice, and then but she can just pop it out quickly. And then once you get on the front foot with her, it's all right. Everything's all right. Yes, you just speak really. Yes, but she says Australians. She can be very polite, but she's very ballsy, but intellectual. It's a really lovely mix. And someone like Jackie Lambie.
Yep.
Now Jackie's another version of forthright. There's a woman who.
But the pace is a bit different.
Yes. And you have to, I consider, I remember seeing that amazing documentary about her in Australian Story, I think it was on ABC, and her life and what are her passions. And, I go pretty deep into the wormhole of these characters while I'm studying them. And I often study them for quite a long time before I start rehearsing, because that's the fun part for me. And Jackie says things as they are as well. And she's on the front foot too. But she's also learning on the job and makes no apologies for learning on the job, but is very passionate about certain things, and that passion gets switched on very quickly if she needs to talk about it, right? You know, and she's got a little bit of air that creeps through her phonations, it's right. Who cares? I always used to think she's a bit like Dave Hughes, but a woman.
You want to talk about Sharia law?
Well, what do I want to talk about her for? I haven't seen that slut since high school.
No, Sharia, the Islam law.
Fucking terrorists, yes, funded by halal. But I'm going to put that under V for Vegemite. Every time you spread your toast, you're spreading ISIS. We've got an ISIS crisis. What are you going to do about it? I'm going to put my Tassie on the map. I'm going to shine a light and expose what's really going on down there. I think that says it. What's the shot look like?
Come and have a look.
You are fucking useless, Brendan. I'm not even in it.
And so I imagine too, there's one thing to create the character, but then there's also the context of the scene you're doing. So do you also have to make the decision, okay, I could do all these things, but what's going to work for that scene?
Absolutely. That often is the hardest part of rehearsals because you have them saying and doing things. You have them singing or you have them dancing. And I don't know how they sing and dance. I don't know. Julia Gillard was singing Phantom of the Opera and I just thought she was Christine.
Sing for me! For me, my angel. Sing for me. All right, don't sing for me.
So as a singer, what kind of adjustments do you need to make for these characters? Because you have a beautiful singing voice, but not all characters sing beautifully.
In fact, none of them do.
Where do you find that line of not insulting the audience with an underpar singing performance, but being authentic to a character? Where's that balance?
I try and sneak it in somewhere, or I just try and behave as though I really know what I'm doing technically, and someone will be impressed by it. But I don't. But to a degree, you do, because you have to preserve your apparatus to be able to do 8 shows a week. So, for instance, Julia in Phantom of the Opera. Now, there she is playing the ingenue, and she's the first female prime minister, so it doesn't make sense. But somehow you cross everything that you know about the character and mix it with Christine, and then you realise actually Christine had an independence. Actually, Christine was a large enough presence to draw the attention of the Phantom, and not only the attention, the obsession of the Phantom. And so Christine might be a little bit forthright in this production of Phantom of the Opera, or in our case, Rudd Never Dies. And maybe Christine does knife the Phantom at the end. Not in a bad way, he comes back to life again. As the title suggests. So in that sense, I had to sort of walk around the set in Julia's walk, but somehow still be potentially startled by the underworld of the Phantom, but still walk with the lordosis and slight turn in of the knees and slight hand protection gestures, although they're not protection. I think they're actually kind of like a stabilisation of the message hands that Julia used to do a lot. And also her neck used to come out a bit like that for Julia. And so I just made that about, well, what is she looking at with the Phantom? So it's a weird place, an actor's brain in that moment. But it's a really lovely question because I'm sure I'm not the only one.
I think it's probably about making connections, because even in the writing stage, just the choice of song is part of the subtext.
Yes.
So the fact that the audience understands the original lyrics gives extra nuance to the changed lyrics.
Yes. I think there's sheer delight when they are expecting one phrase and they know the music and they hear it coming and it's the exact rhyme, but it's a totally different
And there's
sentence.
a delightful clash too of the recognition of the original song and the recognition of the character you're playing and that incongruity. And I think that's part of where the humour comes from.
Yes, yes. I think the first time we did her, she was in The Sound of Music. I think she played Maria. It's like, you know, she's a nun, and then she sat up on the piano and sang some really flatlining song.
If you're playing a dozen characters in an evening, how do you keep each one distinct? What's that backstage process as you change from one character to the next? How do you keep them consistent from night to night?
Actually, we play about 14 characters a night. And that's not to show off, but some of them are filmed. So live it's 11. However, the territory you cover in the filmed ones, you don't want to revisit it as one of your live characters. A lot of it has to do with quick costume changes and the physicality of pulling on the clothes, and you just have to go for it. You've got to jump in. But actually, we rehearse all of that. Our weeks of rehearsal is all about how do we suggest the character. I think the shoes are always the last one for me. I've got the wig. I can't change makeup. It's all in shape of face. And because there's just no time, there's like 90 seconds to change into the next character. Everything's zipped up, clipped, Velcro. There are no dressers, dresseurs backstage. So you get on and you wear your shoes, and once you start walking, you are the character. This character.
Oh, Melania! Melania! No more eating Chinese takeout.
What are you talking about? I don't eat anything.
Well,
Seems quite two-dimensional, but actually you're teaching your muscles how to remember being that person.
That's like a form of choreography almost?
Yeah, including vocal muscles, and also the walks, the feeling in the costume and the clothes they wear, because they don't often wear clothes that you and I would wear. So once we've rehearsed the characters, it really does become about your plot backstage, and you know when you dress that you are shedding that character and then zipping up literally into another one. And once you put the shoes on, sometimes I even get to the point where I must step off on my right foot for Gladys Berejiklian, or and if I don't, I have to really concentrate on swinging the knee appropriately past the hem of the skirt to remember that that's how she walks rhythmically. I mean, it gets very specific. But it's fascinating to me because it's kind of maths, and it requires all of my brain because it's body, mind, and spirit, and you're pulling it all in and making it very Specifica. We are from the island of Specifica, and then
The specific islands.
Yeah, you're using all of the apparatus that an actor has at their disposal to vary and colour. And clearly colour, and wigs. Wigs are a godsend for characters to get variations on all the different women and men that you might be lucky enough to play. I mean, I just remember Julie Bishop was Princess Leia, and I couldn't get it. I couldn't get it until the costume turned up, and it's that lovely belted smock, cream ivory sand smock, and then I just realised, I just remembered the bending down to...
You're my only hope.
You're my only hope. The bending down to R2-D2 of the message that comes through to Luke, is it originally? Eventually. And so that got... And then I thought, oh, all right, so she could be quite mannequin-like because Julie was very muscular and athletic. So to keep her strict in movement somehow, but somehow... gesturally futuristic / 1977, which is Star Wars.
What is that relationship with the audience? Because I imagine once you go on stage and at least establish the character, they give you some liberty.
Yes, in this particular show, once they know who you are and you can enjoy being your version of that person, the audience will let you do a lot of things. It's absolutely true. You can even sing as that character.
I'm no first lady, I'm wife number 3. May not be perfect, but hey, it suits me. And if Don I'm off to Capri. Till then, this lady is a trump.
It absolutely opens up the audience's capacity to understand that we might visit areas of politics that this character may not usually represent. That's why comedy is used so successfully to get a really good message across. Sometimes we don't want to read it from a newspaper or hear it on the news. In satire, we try and keep it warm-hearted. So it's biting and it's intellectual and it's provocative politically, but it can never be cruel because it's gets boring to watch and the audience gets ahead of you. They just go, oh, yeah, we're not supposed to like that character. Mm. And the review itself started in 2000 for Sydney Theatre Company. Robin Nevin invited them to come and then invited them to make it strictly political.
Mm. How long have you been doing it?
14 years, but I took 4 years off. And
so what is that, because in theatre it is kind of a community and we do get to know other performers, but we don't always get together as the same cast. How's it been to come back year after year with this same cast, knowing each other, knowing how you work? Because clearly they'll know your strengths now so they can write to those strengths.
Yeah.
What is that like to be able to come back as a little theatre family?
It's a real privilege, isn't it? Mm. Yes, they can write to my strengths, and I've been very grateful that they push me very encouragingly each year to learn new techniques vocally, physically, character-wise, because they're all directing me. Once they're backstage, they're very gracious about letting me do what I need to do in the scene or the song. Mm. So it's very collaborative in the rehearsal room. I don't really give them any direction because they know what.
You don't have to micromanage something that's working.
Yeah, yeah. It's like they're so experienced. There's 3 of them already, and they've worked so well together. They've been working together since 1987, I think. And the Dingo Principle, and then again 1994 in 3 Men and a Baby Grand on the ABC, and also around Australia and to Edinburgh. And obviously they are a very successful and productive team.
And smart.
Yeah.
Like really smart.
And they do their research to the nth degree.
But also theatre smart. I think they understand theatre, the language of theatre, how to exploit those songs in the mouths of these other characters and have it connect with an audience.
They give each other direction and it's actually really lovely to watch because it's so shorthand and they let each other be each other. It's much like when we were working together in Bite My Chili all those years ago and we would direct ourselves. Occasionally we'd get a director in and they'd oversee a new work that we were working on or some choreography that we were working on or listen to a mix of harmonies that we were working on, beautifully arranged by you. Sometimes that outside eye is amazing. And with comedy, the main outside eye that you need is the audience.
Mm. It either works or doesn't.
Yeah. It's really in the first 5 seconds of appearing as the character that you need to let them know who you are and everybody relaxes.
Mm. Okay, tea?
Many thanks and yes pleases. Okay. Oh, it comes out the bottom.
It does come out, like...
I forgot that about you. Nothing is normal. In a great way.
Thanks, I think.
Expect the unexpected.
Here's cheers.
Cheers.
Welcome to the channel.
Thank you for having me. It's comedy. It's all comedy.
After a short break, we'll be back.